I just wanted to make sure that you listeners are listening to the Drapedomaniac podcast on doayamedia.com. You are, right?
Peace, family, and welcome to this edition of the Drapedomaniac podcast. This is Ayapo Yapa, the HDIC, that is the head Drapedomaniac in charge, and I'm with my beautiful wife,
Angela.
And we're here to have conversations on how to get off this plantation. Now, before we did this podcast, we had some discussions as to what we were going to talk about yesterday, or not yesterday, but last week. We had said that we may be talking about the United States versus Billie Holiday movie, but we have since decided to use a different subject, and so we're going to talk about like our own growth and development and our perceptions about our people and what our place is, and different things that we once held that may have held us back. And how that may have changed in what we think now and so on. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to let you start.
Well, I don't want to start necessarily, but I just want to say, Drapedomania is, wanting to be free and or defined as wanting to be free, wanting to escape. So I just want to say these are ideas that we have escaped, or maybe for me, I have a couple ideas that I think I would like to escape that I don't feel that I have escaped yet. Mm-hmm. So,
furthermore, Drapedomania was the term that was used for black or enslaved Africans who kept seeking to escape, and the white man basically said that was some kind of a mental disorder.
Mm-hmm. I don't even think you had to be seeking to escape. I think just the idea that you wanted to escape, period,
right,
was considered just crazy.
Well, they were talking about
people.
The ones who would escape and then they catch them and then they run again and so on. Or even if you just ran once.
Right. I think they defined it as a mental illness if you wanted to, if a black person wanted to escape.
Right.
But we'll have to check the physician's desk reference, the PDR.
Right. It's crazy. Anyway.
So starting back from an idea that I held as a young person is that I had to earn the right to be loved, or that somehow I was less than and didn't deserve to be loved. And it kind of carried on throughout different parts of my life until I kind of got a hold of it. But I didn't deserve to be loved because I wasn't pretty enough, because I wasn't light-skinned enough, because my hair wasn't straight enough, because I wasn't neat enough. I wasn't a good housekeeper as I was an early wife, because I wasn't successful enough. There was this idea that for me that I've kind of let go of, that love is something that I have to earn. And mm-hmm. I think part of the way that I kind of came to be able to let go of this idea is that when I think of God, I think of a God who loves me unconditional. And it just seems very silly, petty, and ungodlike for God to be like, well, I like that Angela and I would love her fully, but her house is a mess. Right. Or I would love her fully, but her hair is nappy. That just seems so crazy to me. And also, I guess, just kind of a little bit of my experience with, as a wife, I feel like I started to experience unconditional love, to be receptive to it, to be open to it. And also, after I was an adult, going back home and dealing with my parents, I guess that I was really receptive to the ways in which I felt that I was really loved and accepted unconditionally. But I think that even for me to be receptive to that, I had done a lot of mirror work where I just looked in the mirror and said, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love all of you. I love you unconditionally. All of you is lovable and acceptable. I accept and love all of you. And just the process, it was an exercise, is work that I do with clients. But and it was something that was introduced to me. I don't even remember how it was introduced to me, but just the idea of looking at yourself in the mirror, or looking at myself in the mirror in my eyes and talking to me, was a very healing experience. At the beginning for me, there were certain things that I felt very uncomfortable looking myself in the eye and saying, but just the process kind of pushing through and affirming that ended up being a blessing and a transformative thing for me. And I think that what became especially interesting for me with it is that after I had kind of done that work on myself, my relationships with other people were transformed. And I wasn't working on my relationships with other people, but I have found that I am much more loving and accepting of other people as I have learned to love and accept all of me. So that's my first one.
Okay, that's it, and that's fair. In a way, it dovetails with mine. You and I have had this discussion before, but I think of things more in terms of my journey into becoming pro-Black and recognizing our people as for who and what we are. And oddly enough, the first thing that put my foot on that road for my first step was when I broke with traditional Christianity as it's taught in the United States. When I left the church, a lot of people will conflate leaving the church with leaving God, but nothing could be further from the truth. I still have faith in God, or as I say now, Yah. But when I broke with Christianity, that's when I really started to, my eyes really started to open. The lights came on as to not only how Scripture has been misinterpreted and twisted in a way that is harmful, especially to Black people. But I guess like this whole thing of you have to love everybody, love your enemies, and basically everything that we're taught, especially as Black people, is of use to white people. And one of the byproducts of that, unfortunately, is that people who become pro-Black, a lot of them will start to throw the Bible out and say, well, that was written by white people, or that's the white man's Bible, and so on. But if you really, really read what's in Scripture, it again and again and again, it basically says, I'm not gonna say it says the white man is your enemy, because it doesn't, but it contradicts all of this stuff that says that the white man is so great and all that. And I'm like, yeah, if the white man wrote it, they wouldn't have written it like this, right? Or even if they interpreted it in all their way, none of this stuff would be in here. So I don't fall into the camp that says that the Bible was written by the white man and therefore it has to be dismissed or whatever. But I do fall into the camp that says that Christianity, as it was taught in the United States, is something that benefits white people and works to the detriment of Black people. Did somebody just knock?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
I put my water down on the table.
Oh, okay. But after, like I said, oddly, after I made that break, then I started moving more toward an understanding of myself as a black man and our people, as Black people in general. And that started me on my pro-Black journey, because I wasn't pro-Black, 15, 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's working. That worked in my favor, and it and loosened me up.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's interesting because when you started talking, I almost felt like there was like the idea of loving myself unconditionally. It is loving my Black self unconditionally. Right. And it moves out from me to those who are closest to me, who are, my Black family, my Black community, and the Black world. So that was kind of, I didn't know if there was like a conflict there. But anyway, then the next kind of big idea that, I feel like kind of has shifted my life. I feel like it makes me lighter in the world, and it also makes me stronger and healthier is this idea that every meal had to include meat. Like, I think I felt like if it doesn't have meat in it, it's not a meal. And so, the process of kind of becoming a vegetarian, which in a way started before I left home, as a teenager, because my mother kind of started cutting out red meat when her mother was diagnosed with colon cancer. And she did research and felt that meat, like that a major contributor to colon cancer was meat sitting in your intestines and rotting and causing, all kinds of mess and confusion and chaos. Mm-hmm. So she had stopped buying red meat at the house. And so that kind of started to break me away from ideas about meat. But when I went away to college and kind of became, started the process of becoming a vegetarian, it seems like somehow for me, it was a dual linked process. By the time I went to college, I was no longer perming my hair, but I still had perm on the tips of my hair. But I would like twist it and like wash it and twist it, and then I called it the joie lee because Spike Lee's sister, my hairstyle kind of reminded me of like how Spike Lee's sister used to wear her hair in his in the movies we'd see. But, so stopping perming my hair and stopping eating meat were kind of like conflated somehow in my mind. Mm-hmm. And that was something, I feel like that kind of has, I think, but as a result of that, I don't trust the system that tells me that I'm not worth shit or that Black people ain't worth shit. And I also don't trust the system that tells me, this is how you have to eat. This is the food pyramid. Like, I think that, I started to have a growing distrust in the system. And I grew up in a relatively conscious Black love type home. I mean, we were, I grew up with a revolutionary consciousness. And that, so, but I feel like it kind of helped me to take some things to the next level. Or, take some, build on what the foundation I already had. Mm-hmm.
Okay. For me, no, let's see. I see where that would cause you to loot. My whole thing is about getting loose. I see where that would help you get loose. Mm-hmm. For me, my next one is being released from thoughts of the American dream, which the American dream, if you really think about it, is all about materialism. Having this house, driving this car, now having a quote unquote nuclear family. That's not necessarily materialism, but in the context of a society where you're taught 24/7 that you are what you have, as opposed to you are who you are on the inside. I was all about achieving these different goals and being able to buy this and buy that, have this big house, have 17 cars, and I can only drive one at a time, and so on. And and it's all a trap. Mm-hmm. It's all a trap to enslave you and to keep our people enslaved. Mm-hmm. You buy a car or you buy a house and you're making payments on it, and now you're stuck. As opposed to when I've been places and seen people who live very, very simply, and they're happy as they can be. Mm-hmm. And
from the outside looking in.
From the outside looking in, all I know is that. I mentioned it while we were in Costa Rica. I was like, these people look so relaxed. I'm not talking about the tourists, but the people who live there. I'm like, they look so relaxed. They don't look all stressed out. They smile easily. And that, there's always going to be some kind of stress in life or something going on. People die, people get sick, and so on. But overall, the vibe that I got and what I saw, the people looked like they were content. They were content there, and they didn't have a whole bunch of stuff, and they weren't chasing after a whole bunch of stuff from what I saw. And even if it's not just them, I know that in my own personal life, when I let go of a whole bunch of junk and didn't care about having a bunch of stuff, oh Lord have mercy, my life my life changed, my thought processes changed, and I became calmer. And after letting go of a bunch of stuff, I wasn't all stressed out about I got to pay this and I got to pay that and how am I going to have money for this and that. And now, not only do I have what I need, but get a lot of what I want. And it helps that I don't really want much. But even if I did, I could get it in a way that's not going to have me stressed out and having me enslave myself. And once you get free of, every little thing that you get free of moves you even further toward your ultimate freedom. So that's another one of mine, was letting go of the materialism and the idea of the American dream, which is just a carrot that they put before us anyway. But that's it.
So I guess the next idea that I have, it dovetails, it piggybacks right on top of that. And it was a long process. When I first went away to college, they had, when we were getting there as first year students for our orientation and stuff, different banks had tables set up for, sign up for this credit card, sign up for that credit card. If you sign up here, you get a free pizza. If you sign up there, you get a free t-shirt. And I signed up for, all kinds of stuff. And I didn't get any credit cards. And I felt like it was like, at the time, I felt like it was awful. Later on in life, probably, I guess 5 or 10 years later, I had a gazillion credit cards, and I was like really doing the most with being in debt, buying a bunch of bullshit stuff that I did not need. And, I noticed that I was using buying stuff as it's like I thought I was like filling a hole by buying stuff. Like I remember my first apartment, I had this theme of marble. So my microwave, I don't have a microwave now, but at the time I had a microwave, and it was like white marble with gray going through it. My cutting board or my cheese board was white marble. Everything that I could find that had that theme was white marble. And I was like always on the hunt for white marble. Like it was going to make me happy. And I guess in the process, as I moved literally like from location to location in life, I really felt like held down by a bunch of junk. And also, as I got more aware of kind of the world, I encountered something called Debtors Anonymous. And, I felt like I definitely dealt with my relation to debt as an addiction. And that's kind of what the organization is about. But getting free of debt, like that, debt is not a good thing.
Nope.
Debt is not a blessing. Buying a bunch of junk is not good. And that it's not sustainable. And then I kind of encountered Financial Peace University, kind of during that process. And that was the conversation, like, the borrower is slave to the lender, Dave Ramsey, whatever I think of him, that whole process continued that transformation.
Right.
And then I had a time in my life where I was really financially, I went from having a whole bunch of junk to having very little stuff and very little money. Like, within a 15-year time period, I'd have to there were times, even though when I grew up, I was never food insecure. As a child, I never remember worrying about what I was going to eat or even thinking about food. I just always had food. But there was this period in my life, maybe about, 6 months, where money was so tight and unpredictable that it's like I have $3. I can buy some rice, some beans, and some I'm not cornbread, but oatmeal. Mm-hmm. And that was like, and then, if I got a little extra something, I might get an onion. If I got a little extra something, I might get some honey. It was like just really, really tight. But during that time, I realized that the quality of my life in terms of my happiness was not reduced. Mm-hmm. My income and resources were drastically reduced. Mm-hmm. But it was like, eating rice and beans and oatmeal. And if I got some butter every once in a while, I was like, woohoo, that was fun. Right. Or, but I realized, I don't really need much. And I'm not like just so unhappy because I have less than I was. I wasn't so much more happy when I had all this money than I am having very little money. Mm-hmm. And I started to really continue a thought process of, what do I value? What's important to me? Not what society tells me I should value. Not what society tells me it should be important to me. But I discovered that I really enjoy walking. I find walking very rejuvenating. I find taking a bath or being in water very it just like, that's like adds value to my life. It's like being by the ocean. It's just like, whoa! Like you can't put a price on it. And so I really started kind of getting loose of it was a long process, but ideas around money, materialism, and what I actually need, or what's actually important to me. So that's I think that's that.
Yeah, another for me was when I let go of the notion that the police and the government of this country, which are both kind of pretty much the same thing, were here to assist anybody except themselves. Mm-hmm. And beyond that, and that I talk about this all the time, is it's one thing to look at the government and say, they're not trying to help us. It's a whole nother thing, or a whole other thing, to look and say they are literally working against us. And I think that, as they say, the proof is in the pudding. If you look at the government, or you look at the police or something like that, and you're like, I can't make any sense of this. I can't understand why they do the things that they do. The police are supposed to be here to protect and to serve. The government is supposed to be for the people and of the people and by the people and so on. And yet they don't do anything. It doesn't make any sense. But if you shift your paradigm, if you shift your consciousness and say, the police are here to harass us and gun us down every chance they get, and the government is here to destroy you, to destroy us, or whatever, then suddenly everything that they do makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. Perfect sense. Mm-hmm. Look, and that just happens to be what I believe. They literally work against us. Mm-hmm. And I understand why people want to believe that, that it's not that bad, or that it's not that extreme. But all I can say is that when your foundational premise is off, then anything that comes from that premise is going to be off just as much, if not more. Mm-hmm. And so when you understand the premise and you have a correct foundational premise, you have a correct view of what you're dealing with and what's going on, then that helps you to navigate what you need to do, and how you need to do it. For me, and again, we were having this discussion the other day when you were talking about your chains, being all tangled up, or if you had a ball of
and I was yarn, like, throw the whole thing away. Yeah,
throw the whole thing out. and in my terms, throwing the whole thing out means the only thing that you can do when it comes to this system, as a black person, when it comes to this system of white supremacy in which we live, the only thing you can do is try to get away from. You can't rehabilitate it. You can't retrofit it. You can't fix it from the inside. You can't. That's one of our problems as a people, in my opinion, is that we've been fooled into believing that we can keep chasing this carrot and, well, I'm going to fix the system from the inside. Or I'm going to you can't fix this. All you can do is get the hell away from it. And that's it. And that's how I feel about it. And I even reserve the fact, I even reserve that I could possibly be wrong, but I don't think I am. You know, I believe that there is no fixing it. There's no rehabilitating it, nothing. All you can do is do whatever you can do to get away from it, to separate yourself from it. You may not be able to physically separate from it. You may not be able to totally separate from it, but as much as possible, you separate from it so that it has the least effect upon you and your family and so on. But I found that to be very freeing when I came to that understanding, because as long as you think in terms of, we need to go to these people and tell them that they need to fix the system. The system isn't broken. From our standpoint, it's broken. But in truth, it's not broken. It works exactly the way it was designed to work.
Right.
So there's fix what?
Right.
The mice keep coming up to me saying, Ayapo, you need to fix these traps. We keep getting killed in. I'm like, yeah, good. Yeah. Yes. That's what they're supposed to be doing. Yeah, it's a problem for you, but it's where they're working exactly the way that I set them up. Stupid. So, anyway, that's one of the areas of freedom that I found was coming to the understanding and the realization that the system is built against us. It was constructed in a certain way. It works a certain way by design. And anything that we say, as far as like taking it back or working within it or fixing it, you're wrong. Because it's not broken. And it works perfectly.
Right.
So, and when you're asking them to fix it, actually you're asking them to break it. And they're not going to break their system because it works for them. It works very well for them. Right. So as we were saying last night, why would I do that? Yeah. Why? Well, you need to fix it. Why would I do that? Okay, I'm done. I was rambling.
But mine is kind of, I'm thinking, well, for me, I had this idea that government was different from businesses and corporations. And maybe because I kind of came of age in a stage when, there was Ralph Nader, who was like a consumer advocate, and there was it seemed like government had, like, the FDA was supposed to be protecting food. Like, it seemed, and a lot of that stuff here recently has been destroyed or whatever, whatever. But somehow, and also I think because a lot of Black people work for, I don't know how, but somehow in my head, I was thinking that government was different from big business, and that, business and corporations, as I think about it, I was thinking that they're different from the rich white men with property and power who founded this country. And this goes right back to what you were just saying. They created this country to maintain their wealth and their power and their property. Right. And we were considered property, and I think we are still considered property, in their paradigm. But I think that, like, realize
the industrial complex proves that.
But I think that for me, realizing that business is government, So like when like you're like, well, when they gave people when they gave the poor people the stimulus check, they did the biggest wealth transfer in the history of the world, or whatever you say. But for me, it's kind of like, well, yeah, because they're transferring money from the right hand to the left hand.
Exactly.
It's like, or from, my stash into my wallet. Like they're one and the same. And I don't think that I had clearly understood that. I think that I thought that somehow government, just like I don't think I ever thought, well, the police will protect and serve, but I think that somehow I thought that government was here to protect and serve. And so, and that it was different, that the people because a lot of those people are millionaires. A lot of those people, they're the same people that, they're just giving money to themselves. So anyway.
But they're extracting it from the bottom.
Right. And that always I know I always talk about this idea I have of the feudal system, where it was the lords would come on their horses and beat, the feudal, I don't know what they were called, serfs or whatever, the paupers, and give us taxes, pay us taxes, pay us taxes. And those people didn't have any teeth. These are white people in my head. They don't have any teeth. The teeth are rotten out and they die by the time they 29, but they got to somehow come up with money to pay taxes to these rich people. Right. And that's kind of how I feel like this system is. It doesn't exactly look like that, but in my head, it basically looks the same. They just be, and I remember when I was, at one point I got trained and I was doing taxes as a volunteer for a nonprofit organization for people whose income was less than 30,000 or something like that. We would prepare free taxes, and it was a program of the government. And I was just shocked that, it would be I don't understand how this person owes money because they didn't even make enough. How are they supposed to live on the money that they earned, let alone owe money? I was just so shocked. But I mean, it was just, that was the reality. You give us more and more and more and more and more. And then Jeff Bezos, oh yeah, no, you don't have to give us anything. Here's some money for you. Right. And it's just what? And I still think, because I can tell because my voice is loud and I'm talking fast, I think I'm still just kind of I've just been shocked by that. Right. It's on some level. And I don't know why, because on another level, I'm yeah, it fits the profile. It makes sense. But I think the cruelty and the evilness of some things just, I always say that it's a challenge to me to think that somebody would look me in the face and just lie to me. And I'm in my head somehow I'm well, maybe they think this or maybe they think that. Right. It's just really hard for me to just be well, they just lied. And that's what it is. It's there's a part of me where it's just really hard for me to be they're just gangster thug pieces of doo-doo. And, they will extract, they don't care if you don't have money to pay rent. They don't care if you don't have money to live. They don't care if you have to, they don't care. They give them all of your money. Nickel?
to me, it's so much deeper than that. It's because it's beyond they don't care. It is, they are trying to harm you. Yeah. They're trying to harm you. They would not put a $15 raise in the minimum wage in the relief package. None of the Republicans voted for it at all. And I think it was either 6 or 8 Democrats voted against it. I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. They're both two wings on the same bird. But the fact that the minimum wage has been at $7.25 for over 30 years, right? If it went to $15, it should have gone to $15 15 years ago.
Right.
And so even if you made it $15, it's still worth probably, if you made it $15 today, which they were talking about a system where it would be phasing in through, I think, 2025. But even if you made it $15 today, that $15 would still only be worth $7.50 or less. And they wouldn't even do that. And these are starvation, poverty wages. So that people are always desperate, so that they can't get with it's evil. is wicked. The United States is Babylon. I have zero doubt that the United States is Babylon.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's gonna fall.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that I'm always saying, and this is just deeply my belief, is the reason that these business people and politicians aren't doing anything is because, number one, they're globalists. And number two, they know this is going to crash. They know that a crash is unavoidable, and they're just grabbing what they can on the way out. And that's it. You know, that's what I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So
another belief that that fits in, I know it's your turn to give a belief.
No,
you
go
want to
ahead.
give a belief? Is this belief that slavery ended with the Emancipation Proclamation?
yeah.
And when I read The New Jim Crow by I can't even think of the sister, Michelle Alexander. By Michelle Alexander, and that was really paradigm shifting. And I mean, I think that I knew about sharecropping. I knew that a lot of Black people got trapped in sharecropping, and that was a form of slavery. I knew that a lot of Black people got trapped in the prison industrial complex, which I suspect was kind of created at that time because they criminalized things like the same things that are criminalized now. Breathing while Black, existing while Black. Right. Oh, you Black? What are you? Oh, we got to arrest you and put you in jail, and then you get to work for these corporations for free. Right. So that's the government arresting.
Or being convict leased.
That's what I'm talking about. Being well, I guess it's not for free, but it's free.
Well,
you ain't getting paid.
Leasing was when they would sell you out to somebody else.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
They put you in jail and then you work for these corporations for free. Uh-huh. That's what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
You know. You still slave labor.
Right.
So I think just this idea that slavery has ended or the enslavement of people has ended. And I think it just fits perfect. Like I don't know if I necessarily, I don't believe that anything lasts forever. Mm-hmm. And so if it comes up, it has to go down. And I don't believe that this is a sustainable model.
Right.
So I don't think that, just sucking everything you can out of something is sustainable. Mm-hmm. Just like, when I work with soil and gardening, it's like I believe in you have to put things back in. It's like it's a cycle. Mm-hmm. But so this system, I don't think is sustainable. So I don't know if I necessarily believe that they're on the way out, or if the system is just expanding in a different way, because I do believe that they have a global perspective and they see the whole world as their oyster to exploit and to take advantage mm-hmm. of. And I think that, they're just expanding their, enslavement of people. I just think they're expanding their enslavement. And I think that, when people talk about wage slavery, there are some differences, but I don't know. I just feel like I feel like I can't see it because I'm in it, but I just think the enslavement of people has not ended at all.
Oh, and it definitely hasn't.
And then in little ways, I think that they're literally, we read all these stories about this person was being held captive by these store owners. Mm-hmm. They had to work, there's in Libya, this is going on. And, I definitely believe that there are cases in Mississippi or places in Mississippi where I used to live and drive through and people I look at where I feel like they have enslaved people. There's this film we were watching where this woman who was born in 1940, but I don't mean that type of enslavement. I mean the whole world, except for a few elite people, are enslaved. But that's
Well, here's the other part of that. At least as far as something that I'm working on in my own mind. Is see, as a sane person, as a rational person, and I think that a lot of people have a tendency to do what I'm about to say, which is to project onto other people some kind of morality or some kind of sense. Mm-hmm. But when you look at what these corporatists and bankers and so on are doing, it's kind of like when they're poisoning the air, mm-hmm. and then you're thinking, well, they're not going to poison it totally because they have to breathe too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're thinking as a rational person. Mm-hmm. But I personally believe that the majority of them, if not all of them, are freaking sociopaths. Mm-hmm. And they don't have the capacity to look past or think past their own greed or evil.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, they would be like, you're like in a room, right? And they're putting poison gas in a room, and they're in the room with you,
Mm-hmm.
and somehow they're making money off this poison gas, and they'll be laying on the floor dying and coughing, and still pumping the gas, still pumping the poisonous gas in, because they're so freaking greedy that they'll literally die. Still trying to, we've seen it, you see it in animals. It's like they talk about like goldfish, don't give them too much food because they won't stop eating it.
But see, that's a weird thing, because in nature, is it because they're in that fish tank?
It could be, but
anyway.
I was just using that as an example though.
Yeah.
They can't stop themselves.
Right.
They can't stop themselves as rational people who aren't sociopaths. We look at it and we're like, I would stop pumping the air and I'd stop pumping the gas in the room, because even if I hated the person I was with, I don't want to kill myself.
Yeah.
But they're not even that self-aware, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And looking at the world,
mm-hmm.
looking at the radiation,
mm-hmm.
looking at everything, it's obvious to me that they cannot stop themselves. It's like they can't help themselves.
Well, that leads into another idea that I have, because it's not exactly obvious to me.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody said, and so this idea that I'm questioning and trying to like wrap my head around, and I don't know if I'm going to escape it or not, but are all people human?
Right.
Because somebody said, if the sun is trying to kill you, then maybe you're not from here.
I said that.
See, it was you.
Right.
So then I'm kind of like, well, maybe we think, well, we all have to breathe. We're all human. So why are you still pumping the gas in the room? And either they have an escape plan, or they have on a gas mask that I can't see, or
right.
else maybe they don't breathe the same way that I breathe. Maybe
exactly.
their needs are different from my needs. And so it may look one way to me, but they may. So that's not necessary. I don't know if I believe that, the whites are non-human or the whites are alien. It's like there's a part of my training and propaganda or that really rebels against. I'm like, well, all people are people. And it's like, I know that sounds crazy to say out loud, but there's a part of me that really struggles with this idea that maybe, all people are not human, right. And I think,
But the thing that even leads to that process is, for me to believe that someone's human, you have to act like a human being.
Mm-hmm.
You have to behave like a human being.
I feel like the evidence is there.
throwing a baby to an alligator and feeling nothing of it and thinking nothing of it is not human to me.
Well, I don't know how they feel or what they think, but based on the behavior, they don't look human.
Right, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
Taking children and putting them in the electric chair, George Stinney, taking a child and putting them in an electric chair and pulling the switch when that child is innocent. That's not human to me.
To do it to an adult is not human.
Depending on if they're guilty or not.
If a human is innocent and you kill, then I'm saying child is terrible,
right.
Adult is terrible. They're terrorists.
Right.
They're terrible.
I just emphasize a child because it's like almost everybody has compassion for a child. And when you're putting people in slums or consigning them to have no food or water, they're living in shanty towns and giving them poison water like in Flint and so on, and thinking zero of it when you're lynching people and sending postcards of it, when you're lynching people and taking body parts as souvenirs. Please, if you're a human being, then show me where. Because I I have a problem. I can't see where you're human. Mm-hmm. That's just, that's how I feel about it.
Yeah. So that's like an idea. I don't feel like I fully escaped, this concept of whites as humans. Like, I kind of have this belief that all people have good intentions and we're all doing the best that we can do. But I'm not sure if I include the whites in that or not. I'm still kind of grappling with, where I am with that.
Right.
So,
to dovetail with that, something that has been liberating for me is something that's been liberating for me and helps me in my love for our people is the understanding that had any of, if you're still listening, because this is a long podcast.
Oh, how long is it?
I don't know. I'm not even looking. But had you met me 15, 20 years ago, I'd have been considered all kinds of the C word and written off by many pro-blacks.
CUNT?
No.
What's the C word?
Coon.
Oh, why won't you say that word?
Because YouTube gets you for using them.
Oh.
Yeah. But no, not the other C word. but if someone, people who listen to me now, and they're like, he's pro-black, black mixed with black, which I am.
Is that what people say about you, baby?
Yeah,
Who says it?
Which I am. People who listen to me, they know I am pro-black.
Did they say it to you?
Yeah, they say it to me.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, pro-black, period. and my body of work bears that out. Mm-hmm. And my podcasts, my videos, and so on pretty much bears that out. But 15, 20 years ago, had they met me, I'd have been a raccoon,
mm-hmm.
And I would have just been written off. And my point is that this life actually is a journey,
mm-hmm.
and our people are at different places in this journey.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, there are hours of our people who do despicable things. You live with me. You know that I get frustrated about it. I get upset about it.
Mm-hmm.
When I feel like we're doing stuff that's self-destructive and stupid and so on. But at the same time, I try to keep in mind that everybody isn't where I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not where someone else is who's way ahead of me.
Mm-hmm.
Because someone could look at me and say, you still have a long way to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I could look at somebody in back of me and say, you have a long way to go. But just, our people are all we have.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like everybody's against us. I know you don't necessarily feel totally that way, but I feel like everybody is against us.
Well, I feel like anti-blackness is a world pursuit.
It's a world pursuit.
I mean,
and so when all you have is your family, right? Then I think it's more helpful to be healing within your family if you can.
mm-hmm.
If you can't, then you can't.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can, at least just keep in mind that that everybody we encounter, if they're still breathing, they're still on this journey.
Mm-hmm.
They're still on this journey. And it's like being on a freeway where there's like all kinds of off ramps.
Mm-hmm.
Say the off ramps lead to pro-blackness. Somebody might go further up the road than me before they get off the off ramp, because I was in my 30s and 40s
mm-hmm. before
I got my head screwed on straight.
Mm-hmm.
But had I been met, had someone met me during the time before I got my head screwed on right, I'd have been like ridiculed, dogged out, and all this stuff. And that could have been the very thing that would make me say, well, F them, them pro-blacks then. Because they got no compassion for a black man.
Right.
And I just try to keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like if you had met me, if we had met at a certain stage,
mm-hmm.
I definitely, I'm not really into the whole name calling and all of that. I don't think that's really my thing.
Right.
It's not really that funny. I don't know. It's not really my thing. But I would have felt compassion for you. I would have felt I feel a lot of empathy and compassion for black people who I feel hate themselves.
Right.
And sometimes our self-hate, shows up by lashing out at other people. Who are like us, but that's still like self-hate. And I just feel like it's really, really sad. Mm-hmm. So I don't think I would have called you any names, but I probably, would have
we wouldn't be together.
Yeah. I mean, no, we wouldn't be. I don't think so, because we wouldn't. What would we have in common?
Right.
On what grounds could we?
Yeah, and I'd have been like, oh, she's one of these pro-blacks.
And I don't even consider, like, I don't use that label pro-black. Like, I feel like I just love my black behind, and I love my family. I love my community. I love being black. I don't, you know, like, I feel like I'm just pro me.
For black people.
Right. But I just feel like I'm for me and mine, and I love me and mine and my, you know, like, but I'm just saying, yeah, I mean, that's just not my label. Right. I don't, you know, and I actually feel like it's, but anyway, but, yeah, and I feel like we're lucky and blessed to constantly have the opportunity to grow and develop. Growing and developing is a challenging thing. You know, most people, in my opinion, even though anyone has the potential to change and to transform, that's like, to me, what makes people kind of beautiful, that someone could like really transform.
Right.
But I feel like most of us, it's like the, you know, when I used to invest, and the prospectus would say, you know, past performance is no guarantee of future performance, or something of that idea. That's kind of like how I feel like with people. Like, you know, I feel like it's kind of the opposite. Like, past performance is no guarantee, but in general, what they've been doing is what they're going to keep on doing. So I don't have a lot of hope that people, or that individually people are just going to wake up. But I do feel like I have hope, unlike you, I think, that the arc of justice, or that I just think that there are good things. Like, I think that good and God wins out in the end. And that might be naive. I don't know. But, you know, I just have compassion for people, and I'm like, well, they'll figure it out. It may not be in this lifetime. It may take them 50 years, 20 years, 5 years. But, you know, I pray for people. I pray for all of our people. I believe that we can all come to a place of self-love, because I feel like I personally had to come to a process of loving and accepting myself.
Right. Well, my thing is with that, there's a lot of people who don't like the term woke, but for this purpose, I will use that, because it's like it's like, as far as being a black person, when you really come to the knowledge of what it means to be black and what's done to our people and so on, you can't unsee it. It's like, now when I look on television, I see they're trying to push these black woman and a white man, or black man, black man, a white woman. They're kind of constantly trying to push that on us and so on. In the media, you never see an intact all black family. It's always one of them has to be white, their children got to be biracial, or they're married to anybody but somebody else black. It's like, now I can't not see that when they do it. And not just that, but even subtler things that they do. I can't not see it. And the ways that they do our people in the media. So that's one of the things I'm thankful for. And that's not by
accident.
I know it's totally on purpose. But if you're taught that from the moment that you're born and you're constantly watching it, you don't think anything of it.
And also, we don't think anything of, or I feel like it's natural that we hate. I mean, I don't want to say it's natural, but it's not a surprise. If we were watching that thing, Irami was talking about Frozen and WandaVision, and the programming is sort of like, we get programmed to have compassion for white women. We get programmed to think black people aren't deserved. I mean, so it's no surprise then when someone says, you know, oh, this poor white woman, let me rub her head. That's what we've been programmed to do from birth.
Right.
It's not exactly a surprise. And I personally don't I feel like we didn't set the system up like this. We're in the system and we're being attacked by the system constantly.
And speaking in terms of Amber Geiger, right? Has she been a black woman, especially a dark-skinned black woman, not only would nobody have been rubbing her head, not only would not the judge have come and been hugging her and reading her scriptures and everything else, they'd just thrown her in jail, threw away the key, and wouldn't have thought anything of it, in my opinion. Because we just get
We've been programmed and conditioned that black women are awful, terrible, angry, not deserving, when we started off and I was like, well, I don't deserve love. I feel like that's part of, I was programmed into that.
Right.
My mother is like, I love you. My father loved, but where did I get this idea?
And black men are violent, criminal,
not good fathers,
not good fathers, all this garbage,
right?
And you're just programmed day after day, day in, day out, and we end up adopting that crap in our own mindsets without even knowing it.
Well, we're programmed to do it.
We're programmed to do
it's
it. It's
programmed in. It's placed in.
And all I'm saying is that once you break that programming, then you can't unsee it. You might move forward. There might be stuff that you still miss, but as you look and get an understanding of it more and more, you see it, and it just becomes so plain to you. Like when Neo, looked at the Matrix and he saw it as numbers.
Yeah. It's like he can't, it's like the code is there. And once you see, and that's how I feel sometimes. Like, whoa, I just see the code. Like I can't.
Right.
Okay. I have one other idea. Do you have other stuff on your list?
No.
Okay. So then the other thing I wanted to, cause you said we were running out of time or whatever, it's been long, is this idea that like the Tuskegee Institute, experiment was an isolated incident. And there's like a book called Medical Apartheid, which deals with all of these cases of ongoing, not something that just happened in the past, but ongoing cases of experimentation on black people, black women, black men, sterilization, all this other stuff. But this idea that I used to have this idea when I heard about certain things that they were like isolated. And now I feel like it's not just it's not just in healthcare that there's racism. It's not just that there's in education that they're attacking us. It's not just in the media that they're attacking us. It's not just in the workplace that they're attacking us. It's like, it's not isolated. In every sphere that we can be attacked, we're being attacked. And it's not isolated in space, and it's not isolated in time. So it's not like, well, that happened back then. Slavery was back then. The Tuskegee experiment happened back then. That's just the tip of the iceberg. It's happening now. We may not be aware of it. They may be denying it, but all of that all of that attack on black people and destruction of black people is an ongoing thing. On any front that they can fight us, attack us, try to demean us, try to tear us down, they are. Whether I see it or not, whether I know the history or the details or not, it's just that. So it's like they have a holistic approach to breaking us apart and tearing us down, separating us from ourselves as individuals, separating us from each other, as collectives, as families, as communities. So that's it.
Okay.
I'm finished.
Okay. I will let that be the last word.
And we free now. No, we're still working on stuff.
Yeah, we're free now. Next week I would like to discuss the book we're reading, the how Europe
Underdeveloped Africa by Walter Rodney. Oh, one more thing that I have on my list of ideas is that they are ritualists. Like that I think that they do spiritual warfare on us. And I think that that's like a new idea that I'm kind of grappling with and trying to understand.
Right. Oh, maybe we can even talk about that next week. Okay. As far as like where they put Mount Rushmore and so on. Mm-hmm. That was very telling to me. But anyway, so that's it. I hope that you enjoyed listening. Those of you who made it through all this, I want to thank you for listening to the Draped in Maniac podcast. This is Ayapo Yapa, and
this is Angela. What ideas have you gotten rid of, and what ideas do you want to get rid of? Right. What's going to help you get free?
Right. I hope you found that helpful. Gabe may have given you some ideas, or if you have things of your own and in your own life that you got free of that were helpful to you. So that's the Draped in Maniac podcast. This is Ayapo Yapa, the HDIC, that is the head Draptomaniac in charge. Wishing you peace and blessings, safety, sanity, and security through separation. Until the same time next week, when we will both see you on the run.
And And thank you again for listening to the Drapedomaniac podcast. Tune in next week at doiamedia.com. DOIAMEDIA.com. And again, we'll catch you on the run. Peace.